Dana, I know Nick's here in Seattle. Nick Diaz is here in Seattle. Have you given any thought to a potential matchup with him and George? I know Faraz Sahabi, George St. Pierre's head coach, said that was the matchup he wanted.
Are you sure Nick is here?
Nick is here.
Is he?
Yeah, I saw him last
Okay.
night.
Because that seems to be the big money fight, George and Nick right now. Even though he's coming off of a controversial loss and a suspension, people are still demanding that fight. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'll let you guys know this then. George St. Pierre went on vacation. And when he came back, you know, we were talking about Anderson Silva. He said, I want Nick Diaz. Me and Nick Diaz have unfinished business. We were supposed to fight. That's the fight that I want. So, George St. Pierre has been a phenomenal champion, a phenomenal human being, and just a great guy to deal with for us. And he doesn't ask for things, so if he wants to fight Nick Diaz, and Nick Diaz wants to fight him, then that's probably the fight we'll make.
No pushback from you in terms of Anderson Silva, and that's obviously the big one.
Yeah, you know, George has been off for over a year. It was a tough fight for him, the Condit fight. He asked personally for the fight.
Do you think you could do Diaz GSP at the Rogers Center? Is it that big in Canada?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think it's a big fight. I think it's a fight that everybody wants to see. It's an interesting fight.
Do you have a time frame for that?
I don't. I haven't even talked to Nick yet. I was trying to track Nick down this week, which is always fun. So I called Nate, and Nate told me, like, 5 days ago, listen, if you talk to him, tell him I'm looking for him too.
What do you tell Johnny Hendricks?
I'd be told Johnny Hendricks.
Listen, Johnny Hendricks has had some great fights. He is, when he's talking about winning in spectacular fashion, this guy hits people so hard they skid across the octagon. He's in no position to demand anything. George St. Pierre is the champ, has been forever, and if that's the fight he wants, then that's probably the fight we're going to give him if Diaz accepts it.
Can you tell us, what was George's demeanor like? I mean, does he want a piece of Nick Diaz? Is he pissed at Nick Diaz? Or do you just think
he wants to fight Nick Diaz? That's the fight that he really wants. He wants that fight.
Is it because he's upset at him, or he thinks he's the guy in the weight class?
You'll have to ask him that question. He says he has unfinished business with Nick Diaz, and that's the fight he wants.
And why do you think that the Diaz brothers attract such interest from the fans? I mean, certainly there's nobody like them in the world.
There you go. They are interesting guys.
Why do you think they get the kind of support and interest that they
well, I think they're the type of guys that land right in the middle. There's tons of people that love them and tons of people that hate them. You know how many people tell me that those guys shouldn't even be in the UFC, they represent the sport poorly and this, that, and everything else, and then I get stuff from people that love them and think the Diaz brothers are the greatest things ever. I personally, I like the Diaz brothers. I like guys that are just, I like fucking me. This is the fight business, you know? And I understand it's a martial arts and all that stuff, and you're gonna have guys that are martial artists and will never say a word about anybody, and they'll bow and shake everybody's hands, and then you're gonna have some mean, nasty fuckers like the Diaz brothers and Ronda Rousey that, you know, want to finish people.
Dana, you make this GSP Nick Diaz fight. Are you concerned about the press conferences and the media events, and what are you going to do to make sure everything goes smooth as possible?
I got to tell you, I would be pretty shocked if Nick didn't show up for another press conference. Last time he did, I pulled him out of the fight. So, I mean, you can't not show up for press conferences. It's part of the deal. You know what I mean? It's in your contract. It's part of the deal. We've never ever had a fighter not show up for a press conference. It's just, you absolutely positively cannot do that.
You don't have any problems like that with Nate or anything like that?
I've never had one problem with Nate ever.
If that happens, Johnny said he'd be more than willing to sit out.
What's that?
If that fight happens, Johnny said he'd be more than willing to sit out for a title shot as long as it takes for you.
He said that?
Yeah, would you let him, or would you throw him back in there?
No fight.
Dana, were you disappointed at all to have GSP come back from vacation and not say, give me Anderson, give him to me now?
No.
Why not?
You know, there's fights that we want to make and things that we want to do. But if George, you know, George has been off for over a year. He had a tough fight against Condit. He wants, I know what he wants. He wants to get another fight under his belt. before he wants to get back to feeling and being himself again before he even thinks about fighting Anderson Silva. I was just saying 2 seconds ago, this guy is Anderson Silva is so far the best fighter in the world. Fuck pound for pound. They ought to make a whole nother list for him. I don't know what you call it, but he should be on that list. That's how good this guy is.
Do you think this is a smart call by GSP to take another fight first?
He knows his body. He knows where he's at physically and mentally, you know, and I have to respect that.
On the media call, you and David Shanks said that there's preliminary talks about maybe having a UFC like the Super Bowl weekend. Is that something that you guys?
Do you wait to book that Diaz fight until he goes in front of the commission, or can you kind of come up with a date for it now?
Yeah, no, we can come up with a date for it. I mean, I don't see how he doesn't get a license. He wasn't using performance-enhancing drugs. You know, there's a big controversy right now over whether guys who are caught smoking marijuana should be treated like a guy who used a PED. You know what I mean? Marijuana isn't going to give you the physical strength to go in and hurt another human being.
It actually became legal today in Washington State. Today's the first legal day. You can go outside and smoke it right now.
Really? Yeah. That's going to be crazy. Huh?
And then you get married because it's getting married too.
So you can literally smoke now.
You can walk down the street smoking weed.
At midnight, they were under the space rally. Space Needle.
Go keep an eye on the name.
We were all there.
What will do me and marry your boyfriend?
That's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy.
So you're scared about the drug test coming back, man?
No, now I'm worried that Nick's in town. All right.
Danny, you said
yeah, but seriously, that shouldn't be treated as a PED. You know what I mean? So for me to say, you know, these two are going to fight, there's no way in hell Nick Diaz shouldn't get a license. He absolutely should get a license.
Have you looked at the schedule, or do you have any idea when the fight could take place?
I do, but I don't want to talk about it yet because
April 20th,
nothing's done.
420 maybe
420.
for Diaz. No, okay. Right over your head, but that's all right.